A very good morning to the panel of Thesis Proposal Thesis and Dr. Stefania Albert Chonglai, my distinguished thesis supervisor. I would like to present to you my thesis proposal, the effectiveness of bottom-up approach and listening skill on test score performance and learning motivation. First and foremost, in order to build this research, the issues identified and cited, it seems as Kabir 2020 states that many ESL teachers believe that teaching listening skill in the classroom is traditional and unpopularized due to the global needs for vocational L2 learners, that they only focus on mastering speaking, writing, and reading. Therefore, the L2 learners score lower in activity, assessment, and tests. In fact, the L2 learners believe the extrinsic motivation from the ESL teachers never impart the extrinsic motivation as listening skill is impractical for future use. Moving on the rationales of this research, this approach is a learning strategy for a language acquisition that has strategies to be used and as conductors in student-centered learning. According to the group of researchers like Akbar et al. 2020, Jose 2023, Dolek 2022, Manihuruk and Sidabutar 2022, and the rest of them, the evaluation tests are quantified to measure the students' learning and a questionnaire is collected to evaluate the scale of applying the strategies and learning motivation. As a matter of fact, the citations for the rationales are identified to support deliberately. The significances of the study are, moreover, that ESL teachers would liven up this approach in listening skill by using other listening approaches or by an integrated approach. This movement, then, will remind MOE, as stated by Sheikh et al. 2024, and some researchers to cater the teaching of listening skill as important as other linguistic skills in the curriculum. As a result, the L2 learners will find listening skill valuable for the use of artificial intelligence in digital era. This study, therefore, encourages future research to have it for an in-depth qualitative study. On the next slide, the research questions are: is the implementation of bottom-up strategies in the classroom significantly affecting the students' test score and learning motivation? And is there a significant correlation between bottom-up approach and test score performance? And eventually, is there a significant correlation between bottom-up approach and learning motivation? Moreover, in this research, I am going to evaluate if the implementation of bottom-up strategies in the classroom significantly affecting the students' test score and learning motivation, and to determine the significant correlation between bottom-up approach and test score performance, and finally, to determine the significant correlation between bottom-up approach and learning motivation. The hypotheses are derived from these research questions and objectives that are going to be tested, such as there is a significant mean difference between pre-test and post-test in the students' test score and learning motivation, and there is a significant correlation between bottom-up approach and test score performance. And eventually, there is a significant correlation between bottom-up approach and learning motivation. Let's focus on the literature review. There are 20 past articles dated from January 2020 until April 2025 analyzed in thematic analysis discussing bottom-up listening strategies, listening comprehension, language learning motivation, effectiveness of teaching methods, listening test performance, CEFR-aligned ELT, and integration of listening strategies. On the overview, the bottom-up strategies and the bottom-up implementation, the listening skill development in CEFR context, the quantitative studies on listening tests, and the listening learning motivation as one of the research articles, Dolek 2022 has stated, are categorically cited as well. Moving on to the research gaps, it seems there is the simultaneous impact on cognitive and affective outcomes that may be varied. Then the long-term effectiveness together with an integrated approach, top-down approach, is in jeopardy. Finally, the incoherent influence on learning motivation may be factorized by the different types of strategies in this approach. Every independent variable, dependent variable 1 and 2, have past articles to be analyzed. Let's investigate the theoretical framework for this research. There is only one theory used, that is the bottom-up theory from Widdowson model of communicative competence 1985 by Henry G. Widdowson, which supports the bottom-up strategies. There are three models, such as the active listening model 1957 by Carl R. Rogers and Richard E. Fassen, supporting the bottom-up implementation, the CIPP model 1960 by Daniel L. Staffelbeam, catering the evaluation on tests, and the IRCS model 1987 by John M. Keller, focusing on the learning motivation. The conceptual framework of this research is shown in the diagram. This framework is used to conduct this research methodology. Discussing this methodology, the research is a quantitative study design and is divided into experimental and non-experimental designs. The methods of data collection are by conducting a pre-post test design, a questionnaire with 5-scale Likert type design, and a listening test that is measured in 10%. The pre-diploma vocational students from College Vocational Kirinau, Semester 1, 2025 intake and age 16 years old are the population. However, 2 out of 9 vocational programs with 60 respondents, of 15 males and 45 females, are selected for independent samples t-test and Pearson product moment correlation to be analyzed. The procedures are carefully conducted by doing a formation of control and experimental groups. Then all groups will be having a pre-test in week 1, then an intervention of bottom-up teaching starting week 2 until 13 on the experimental group. Later, both groups will be having a post-test and a listening test in week 14, and the final procedure is I will give feedback of their scores in week 15. Furthermore, the data analysis are about mean, standard deviation, maximum and minimum numbers, and Pearson product moment, which are analyzed by IBM SPSS version 26. Moving on, the research study plan. Here is the Gantt chart that tabulates my progress of writing my thesis proposal with supervisions from Dr. Stefania via online meeting and mostly email exchanges as our form of convenience in the degree of agreement. The research resources are within vocational education institution and by just using 50 ringgit as a funding for papers. However, there is still a continuous progress in finding conference or publication for this thesis proposal as a compulsory requirement for graduation. Eventually, in conclusion, I have expected to get the results from the development of imparting strategies and empowering implementation, the improved test score performance, and the enhanced learning motivation that later will be discussed in Chapter 4 and 5, so that I may know there is a high probability of success that this bottom-up approach has its impact on test score performance and learning motivation among L2 listeners. Before I end this presentation, I restate the thesis proposal, the effectiveness of bottom-up approach in listening skill on test score performance and learning motivation. Thank you.